Hey friends, according to YouTube, it's been 2 months since I last uploaded a video, which is less than ideal. I think at a bare minimum, I would like to do at least one every month, just as like a status update so that I can check and look at how things have been month on month over the years. But, better 2 months than like 6 months or something, so here we are. I've been busy mostly taking care of this guy, which has been great, but also I have been feeling kind of slow building of frustration that I have not made much of a dent in anything in my work. I did have a minor, not breakthrough, but I did make some strength gains, like literal weightlifting strength gains in lifting earlier today. I was doing a bunch of kettlebell rows, and I just feel good about lifting more than I've ever lifted in terms of like reps and stuff. It's not really that important specifics wise, but I'm just reminded that it feels good to win and it feels not good to not win. And then there's always that meta of, should that be the case? Should you try to decouple your sense of well-being from winning? And similarly, my wife and I are having someone come over day after tomorrow, and so we're cleaning up the house. And you could say something like, well, I wish I could clean my house as well as I do before someone comes to visit when there's no one coming to visit. You could wish that. Maybe you could try to implement it, or you could just have people over more often. And as the years go by, I have increasingly lost interest in trying to change those things that seem like they're difficult to change, and instead just work with what you got, right? So you don't want to be swimming against the current. So in this case, the current is, you clean your house more thoroughly and with more, you have more energy to do it when you know someone's coming over. So just have people over, and whatever gets you to do things is whatever gets you to do things. I find that when I have conversations with friends, my mind is percolating afterwards with all sorts of thoughts and ideas for things I want to do and write and whatever. And I used to be like, oh, if only I can come up with some clever ways to be as creative as I feel after a conversation. Like, fuck it, I'll just have more conversations. I think that's just the better way to do it. Well, I guess previously I wasn't sure if that was the better way to do it, because maybe there's a more elegant way. But I am pretty much like giving up on trying to find better ways than just doing what works and like pushing that to the limit, maybe, or just doing more of it and then seeing what happens. What else is going on? I was looking at some of my notes and like my to-do list things and stuff. And from months ago, I did have something about wanting to make a bunch of YouTube videos. And I still do think YouTube is a good idea. I do still think it's worth like investing time and energy, and like I would like to make some beautiful video essays, but I don't really have the gradient of effort required to do that. Feels a bit too high for me. And I still tweet every day, I guess. That doesn't require any effort from me at all. But what I still want to be doing is writing essays. I'm getting bored of hearing myself talk about my essays when I haven't been publishing at a cadence that I would like. So I would like to be publishing at a higher cadence. Well, I guess I'm conflicted about that. Like, I have been thinking, my big good essay of 2023 was, Are You Serious? And I did ask myself, okay, if you only wrote one essay the whole year, what would it be, right? Which I think is a useful kind of forcing function constraint thing. And if I were to write just one essay for all of this year, I'm pretty sure I would go with the essay on wretchedness. I don't know if I have a video about that. WRETCHED. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound to save a wretch like me. Wretchedness. But am I going to write that like this week? I don't know. But I'm kind of flashing. I guess once I've made that decision in my mind, okay, 2024's number one essay is going to be that. It's sort of, there's now some mental space, subconscious space, whatever, devoted to just putting together the pieces. I might sketch out a draft here and there. No pressure to me to finish it next week or next month. even, but I would like to ship something before Christmas, maybe on Christmas, something like that. Yeah, I've also been going in circles about updating Friendly Ambitious Nerd, right? And I used to agonize over, should I try and update the existing book to like version 1.5, or should I write a whole second book and call it version 2? And what I'm coming around to is neither of those things. Instead of trying to update the first thing, which is a lot of effort, because then I got to go and reread everything and reanalyze and recontextualize everything, or write an entirely new thing that's a standalone, that is an independent thing, which is also a lot of effort. I realized when playing video games that, hey, video games like The Witcher 3 and also Cyberpunk, they're both made by the same company, CDPR. They both have excellent DLCs, which is like add-ons that you can download. Well, these days when you buy the game, I don't know about Cyberpunk, but I know that when you buy the Game of the Year edition of Witcher 3 these days, it comes packaged together with the DLCs, which are like expansion packs, and they are excellent expansion packs. It's like, so yeah, I'm basically gonna do a fan expansion pack, which I might then bundle with the first thing, which I have taken to calling Fan 1. So I think Fan 2 is Fan 1 bundled with the expansion pack. Maybe like yeah, the names I use are not that important, but the point is to find an easy gradient to adding stuff that feels fresh, interesting, compelling, is doesn't make me upset, doesn't make me stressed, there's useful stress, there's like the interesting stress of working on a Sudoku puzzle and trying to figure out what fits where, and then there's the not useful stress of, I don't think I should be doing this feels like a waste of time / effort, it's not going to go anywhere, I'm just going through the motions or whatever. And yeah, that brings me, I guess, to my essays again, which is, okay, I've decided that so like I've named my project clusters in my head. Friendly Ambitious Nerd is VV1, so everything to do with fan is VV1, everything to do with introspect is VV2, and VV3 is frame studies, which is my thinking is that I will write it as a bunch of essays on my Substack, but not every Substack essay is necessarily gonna fit within frame studies, and maybe someday I'll package the essays of frame studies into a separate thing. That's not very important, but so that feels good. It feels like frame studies as VV3 feels correct, and it does free me up to like set aside things that don't fit within it if I don't want to write about it. And yet, despite all this thinking and agonizing and rethinking and rearranging, like last night when I was lying in bed, I think, or maybe this morning in the shower, at some point recently, it just, again, I was reminded that I still don't feel like I have it. There is an it that I'm looking for that I have not found. I've gotten closer, I've narrowed down my search substantially, which does feel good, but I will know when I have it, quote unquote, when writing feels, the word that's coming to me now is effortless, when writing feels effortless, but it's not effortless as in no struggle. Or maybe it's not struggle as in no effort, where I'm putting in work and there will be, it's like going to the gym and working out, and you have to exert yourself somewhat, but you're not, struggling in a constrained way. You're not like, and I guess this is the thing that, people talk about with non-doing and non-coercion and effortless mastery, and there's all this sense of, there's a way of being that you do put in effort, but you're not struggling. And right now, as I'm walking and making this video, I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say, not in an exerted way, but it's kind of falling into place, right? It's not necessarily perfect. I just stumble over a word. It's no big deal. Just keep going. And it doesn't matter to me that I stumble over words, but what matters to me is that the thing that I'm doing feels like it has somewhere that it's going. And I don't necessarily need to be certain of where it's going, but I have some sense, so it's interesting, I guess, at the meta level, that all of this is kind of secondary to my creative process. And I feel like I've written multiple Substack posts about my creative process, and people do like it, but I don't actually want to spend too much time writing about it. But I don't mind. I don't want to write essays about my creative process, writing the essays. I don't mind talking about it in YouTube videos. I don't mind writing about it in tweets or on a blog separate to the essays themselves. But I feel like the essays should be about something other than the essays that are being written. And yeah, so I do think frame studies is correct. But I do think the subject, I've figured out the domain area of my subject. Cool. But there's something about the approach that I'm not getting right yet. And now I'm reminded that a few videos ago, maybe I wrote about something about braided loops, where you start on one idea and then you allow that idea to loop you to something else, and then you kind of go in interesting cycles. So that's an idea about how to write a specific post. But I know this sounds a bit precious, but I almost can't bring myself to do it until I see the big braided loops patterns at the level of the zoomed out level scale of 100 essays, let's say, which might seem, I don't know if I would say it's too ambitious, but in my view, unless I have that perspective, the odds of me succeeding at the thing I want to succeed at is very low, and such that it's quote unquote not worth attempting. It would be worth attempting just for practice's sake, I guess. And so this is something that I'm in conflict with myself about, and such conflicts make it harder to get things done. So I have to resolve the conflict, even if it's just coming up with a provisional answer that I'm personally persuaded by. And so far, I'm not yet entirely persuaded of anything. So I do tell people all the time, you should just write stuff. But that's I've written a lot of stuff already. So I am no longer in the position so I would not give someone who's written 1 million words the same advice of, you should just write 100 more posts. No, if you've already written 1 million words, there's something else you should do. What should you do? Maybe if I let myself inhabit this, I'm advising someone else, I might say the thing that I need to hear. Okay, so some guy, he's written 1 million words, he has a moderate to large audience, 100,000 people, whatever, sold a couple of books, people know who he is, people like his thoughts. He wants to do something more ambitious, right? So he's Radiohead-ish, and he's done the bands, and he doesn't know it yet, but he wants to do OK Computer. So how do you do that? What do you start with? Do you start with the sound? Do you start with a vision? Do you start with a sense of coherence? Do you grow something out of something else? Is it a bunch of trial and error? I don't think it's just a bunch of trial and error. What is it? How do you... And maybe I'll go and look it up and read up about it again. I did do some reading about OK Computer, for example. But maybe I need to revisit it through this lens. But yeah, the idea, I was looking up some quotes. There's a quote from, I can't remember his name, by some guy who teaches at the military college, West Point. And his quote says, there's 2 approaches to warfare, asymmetrical and stupid. And meaning, if you have to fight some kind of fight, right? And you basically don't fight fair. So fair fights at a 1-to-1 guy to between 2, player combatants that respect each other. Those aren't real. That isn't real warfare in a sense. Well, it depends on your values. Maybe once upon a time there was this chivalric idea of let's all go on the battlefield and everyone dies and the last man standing is the honorable one or something. But if you're at a real war, you do whatever you can to win, right? You find whatever angle gives you an unfair advantage, basically. And I kind of feel like with Twitter, maybe part of that for me was my elaborate quote tweeting game and threading game. That allowed me to do these OODA loop breaking things. And I'm just wondering, I haven't figured out what that is on my Substack yet. Like there has to be some angle that I can take that's different than, it's vaguely different than what everyone else is doing. I'm not going to try and be like super ultra contrarian or something and do something that's never been done before. I don't think that's possible. But I'm still gonna, it's already 15 minutes, so I'm just gonna end this video here and I'm gonna keep thinking about it. Like, what can I do with my essays? Like, so, okay, the constraint again, I want to be shipping every week. So, what can I ship every week that would be compelling in a way that isn't the same as what, no disrespect intended, but what everyone else is doing, or what loads of other people are doing, or what people like me are doing? Like, how can I just, what can I do to break the pattern and do something new and interesting? You know, like one of the coolest things I think I did in my second book, Introspect, was in between the acts, so there's Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, in between the acts I would do like this unhinged rambling, unedited, and I really, really like that. I feel like once I had that idea, the rest of the book made more sense. And yeah, I want to figure out something like that for my Substack. It might be, you know, experiment with different voices. It might be something about continuity, I think, is a theme in my work. Something about, as you read each individual post, I want you to assemble something bigger than, oh, you know, I'm just reading another post. It's just another piece of content. Like, yes, it is also another piece of content, but I want to, I want to be thinking in terms of how am I going to reward my readers for reading. And yeah, I think there's something about hyperlink paths, garden paths, desire paths, something about what gets built on what else, and something about hypertext density, I think, is what I'm going for. So when I figure out what the hypertext density thing is going to be, I think then it feels a bit warm, but I will go and sit down and fantasize about it a bit more. Alright, hope you guys are well. Tell me what you guys are up to. What's new with you? What are you working on? What are you struggling with? Always interested in hearing. Take care. Done.